And welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of What If Ichigo Was Part Saiyan. I was almost done with everything. I was almost caught up yesterday, and then I had finished doing the Naruto What If, and I started getting like this weird like distortion in my eye, which if you've ever had a migraine, you know what that means. It was like, oh, my eye's getting like that weird pixelated. I'm like, crap. And I didn't have a headache yet at that point. I'm like, okay, let's take some ibuprofen, drink something, eat something. Maybe it'll come. And then it just started to creep in. And I'm like, oh, no. So I got floored for the remainder of that. I went to bed, took a nap at like 6 o'clock. Woke up at like 8:30. Felt generally okay, but I'm like, no, there's no way I'm doing any other videos at the end of the night. Stayed up for another 2 hours, then went back to bed. So it happens every once in a while. I'm not prone to them, but I do get migraines from time to time. One of them was so bad, I literally I went into work, knew it was going to start happening. It started happening, tried to work through it, and then an hour into work, I'm like, I gotta leave. Regardless, I still wanted to get the part 2 out before the Saturday. I didn't want to just skip an entire video. And so we're into the Soul Society arc, Rescue Rukia arc. Last time on the Ichigo Bleach What If. Haven't done a lot of Bleach. By the way, someone did say, he's never done a Bleach What If. That's actually not true. In the early days of the channel, I had done a Bleach What If. It was basically what if Kenpachi had Shikai and Bankai from the beginning of the series. In which case, he would have been very OP. I mean, he is already very OP. But by that early point in the series, Aizen wouldn't have been able to even touch him at that point. It's debatable whether or not Yamamoto could, because Kubo has confirmed that Kenpachi is the strongest living Shinigami, or at least is the strongest Shinigami. Like pure, just straight Shinigami. We're not talking about hybrid beings. We're talking about straight, pure Shinigami, or Soul King enhanced individuals. Now, is that of all time, or is that just alive? Who knows what he means by that? Based on some feats he did in Camp Your Own World, that might be of all time. Honestly, because he did some feats that even Yamamoto couldn't keep up with, particularly when involving the Apollo, Ikomodome. I can never pronounce it without looking at the name. I digress. So we are in the Soul Society arc now, and once again, a lot of it goes. The first part of it would go the same. They would go through, was it the Bankai? I believe it's the Bankai. I think that's what it's called. The name is. The cleaner would come and they would end up in the Rukan district. They would meet up with Ganju. Very different though is, at least very different. Different though is the interaction with Jidambo. I always do that with Jirobo and Jidambo because of the Naruto character. And ironically, there is a Jirobo in Bleach as well, who is ironically related to Jidambo. He's the guy Uryu defeats with the, I believe it's Suji Karasu or something like that, the sword that turns into the spinning blades. He's actually related to Jidambo. But remember, Gin completely overwhelmed Ichigo. Like, Ichigo blocks it, crap, and he basically just gets floored and says, bye-bye. And Ichigo could go Super Saiyan here. Granted, I think it's just that his reflexes are a lot better at the moment. He doesn't think initially to go Super Saiyan, because he even beat Jidambo without any real effort in the original. And here, he's honestly stronger here than he was in the original. Gin, though, still forces him back. The gate's closed, and Ichigo thinks, maybe I'll just bust through it. Not realizing that would be a very bad idea. To which Yoruichi even says that would be a stupid idea. Don't be an idiot. Even with that transformation you do, there's no way you could take on many of the captains in the Soul Society. Now, whether or not it's a true statement or not, look, from my perspective, I'd say that's true. Like, he could probably easily take on like a Komamura, could probably take on Tozen, although his Tozen's Bankai is problematic. Could probably take on Hitsugaya. Mayuri's a debatable one, because Mayuri power-wise he could probably take. But Mayuri's body is very tricky. We know if he straight out, he did tie with Kenpachi in the original. So here he would be able to beat Kenpachi. Unohana, though, we know based on the 1,000-Year Blood War arc that he'd probably lose to Unohana, probably to Shinsui. If Ukitake is actually in good fighting condition, he'd lose probably to Ukitake. Yamamoto, he's definitely getting clapped by. Soifone is debatable. Soifun might be faster than him, but Soifun's a tough one now I think about it. If Gin hits him with his Bankai, Ichigo's screwed. But that's assuming Gin decides to use Bankai. And I would also say he's probably not as strong as Aizen right now either. The real debatable one in all of this really comes down to Byakuya. I would say that right now he would be a good match for Byakuya, but he would not beat Byakuya. Hell, he didn't really beat Byakuya. When you really look at that fight in the Soul Society, Byakuya said, "This victory is yours." But let's be honest, if that fight had continued, which Byakuya seemed to be in good enough shape that he could have continued the fight, he would have killed Ichigo. Ichigo was barely standing after that fight. And it wasn't a fight about who would actually win the fight. It was a fight about ideologies and whose was stronger. That's what that fight ultimately came down to. Regardless, Ichigo and them go to the Rukongai. I believe it is. Rukongai. The section where Ganju and the Shibas are. Ichigo once again uses the orb to try to create a sphere so they can effectively crash through the barrier. Ichigo's is much bigger here. When they crash the barrier, gets separated. The long and short is honestly that everyone else's interactions are the same minus Ichigo. He takes care of Ikkaku pretty easily here. Well, okay, not pretty easily, because again, I don't think he has any real reason to be turning into a Super Saiyan. He knows that is a trump card he needs to hold on to, because the moment they know he can do that, they're going to be prepared for that. And he knows that they can sense the energy as well. Beyond that, too, I would imagine Super Saiyan is still something that while he can do it, and now do it at will, it's also still taxing on his body and his Ryatsu reserves. So he doesn't want to do it haphazardly, even though he's definitely been training with it a little bit. So he still takes on Ikkaku pretty well. Ikkaku warns him about his captain coming his way. Then him and Renji have their fight. He and Renji are going back and forth. Again, a stronger, more capable Ichigo. How much stronger is actually a good question. We've already got the more physically enhanced, let me rephrase that sentence. He's already physically more enhanced than the normal Ichigo because of his Saiyan heritage. Beyond that, I would say that also gives him a boost in his Ryatsu. Let's just hypothetically say from a Ryatsu to Ryatsu standpoint, Ichigo and Renji, at least at the beginning of that fight, seemed about the same, though Ichigo quickly grew past him as the fight went on. Let's say that if Ichigo was... Okay, let's say Renji and Ichigo are tied. Both at, let's say, 5. Ichigo here is more like, from a Ryatsu standpoint, probably more like a 6 or a 7. Not drastically higher than Renji, but high enough that it's noticeable by Renji. And he also lays a smackdown on Renji pretty hard real quick. He doesn't use Super Saiyan unless I think maybe just briefly blitzes him with Super Saiyan when he absolutely has to. It just, again, breaks Abimaru, smashes through his sword, injures him greatly, but we know Renji was able to recover from that, and ultimately has to, lie down and take a nap. Granted, we also have the fact that he can get Zenkais in this version, which is why I would say his Ryatsu is higher, and he would definitely get a Zenkai from this fight as well. The question now, the big change up in scenarios comes with Kenpachi. Now, granted, Kenpachi's Ryatsu is still nuts. He was dwarfing Ichigo when they first met. And I mean dwarfing. Even if I were to theoretically give Ichigo back then the Super Saiyan. And this is base Kenpachi, mind you. He was dwarfing him. His Ryatsu was so strong that Ichigo felt like he was moving like quicksand. That's how strong base Kenpachi was with his eye patch on. With the eye patch off, Ichigo was barely able to match him. They basically fought to a draw in the original. Even if I were to say give Super Saiyan Ichigo the edge, it wouldn't be by a lot against full power Kenpachi. And here, honestly, it is a little bit the same thing. Even though Ichigo is stronger compared to where he was in the original, it's still one of those scenarios where he's not that much stronger than his opponent, at least for the time being. Still, Ichigo is still scared as hell. He charges into, and still he cuts his hands on on Kenpachi, and he's still running away. He still knows he has Super Saiyan, but right now he's just kind of stuck in that primordial fight or flight. Ultimately, though, he gets the courage to, stand up. The Kenpachi cuts him, and he cuts him a bit deeper and stronger here, again, being stronger than the original. Don't move, stay like that, razor sharp. See, this is where the fun really begins. And they're fighting it out. Ultimately, Ichigo, unlike in the original, isn't going to get too cocky because he knows he's... Now, granted, he does call Kenpachi out for the Zanpakuto thing, but he's... the minute he gets too cocky and he feels Ryatsu slipping, he's like, goes into Super Saiyan, just blasts him, Kenpachi back. This is... what's this? They didn't mention anything about this in the records. Now this is what I'm talking about. And he just comes in. Ichigo actually does the reverse to Kenpachi, because right now his base form, the Super Saiyan form, Kenpachi's base, the Ichigo's Super Saiyan form, there's a drastic difference now. Like, not super drastic. Kenpachi can still kind of keep up to a degree. Granted, when Ichigo was like fully ready to fight, he's like, I can't hold him. And Ichigo just is like, and Ichigo's like, sorry, I don't have time to deal with you. I can't use this form for very long yet, for a long period of time, so I'm going to end this right now. Oh, you want to end this now? There's no way I can do that. Not now when we're having so much fun! And he just flexes all his power. And again, Ichigo's like, are you kidding me? Come, stop it. He just cuts him up again. And it gets to this scenario where he just laughs. Finally, I met my equal. In fact, you might be slightly better than me. When was the last time I felt such elation? By the way, love the fact they use that in the dub anyway. I can't remember the manga or the Japanese. But I love the fact they use the word elation. That word does not get used enough, elation. Against you, I think I can fight with no restraints at all. And then all of a sudden, boom! What the heck? What nasty secret have you been keeping behind that eye patch of yours? Secret says I stoop so low as to use something like that. I at the science department developed this little monster for me. It's constantly eating my Ryatsu. But now that I've released, I've taken off, I'm releasing 100% of my spirit energy! Shink! And I'm going to use it to kill it. And I'm going to put every ounce into killing you. It's that simple. By the way, I don't know. Let me know if anyone knows in the dub. First off, if you know Naruto, you know the guy who does the voice for Jiraiya does the voice of Kenpachi. That was like such a perfect dub voice for him. I've heard some people get on some dubs, I know One Piece gets dubbing hate sometimes. I don't watch One Piece, but I know it gets dubbing hate occasionally. And I know Bleach has occasionally gotten that, but mostly I think their voice casting was pretty spot on. Yamamoto's perfect. Shunsui's perfect. Honestly, Hitsugai's perfect. And those are just a couple I'm thinking right off the top of my head. But Kenpachi's, it was so perfect. But then after the Nuatora arc, it's no longer him. It's the guy who does the voice for Ishin. If you actually listen to it, it's the guy who does the voice for Ishin, who I think also either did the voice for Yamamoto, or I think also they had to do that voice as well. But I don't know I wonder if there was a contract thing, or he was upset, like a pay thing or whatever. Sucks he didn't come back to continue voicing Kenpachi, because his Kenpachi voice rocks. Anyway, and so he and Kenpachi are squaring off, but despite the power difference, which has now been significantly decreased, there's another problem Ichigo's having. He hasn't had his little moment with Zangetsu in this version, because unlike before where Kenpachi mortally wounded him nearly, and he had to have his debate with his inner hollow, aka real Zangetsu, that didn't happen here. He didn't have that moment. So him and Zangetsu are not working together yet, which is actually huge, because the reason Ichigo was really able to he didn't really beat Kenpachi, whatever you want to call it. Kenpachi considers it a loss. We all in the fandom know it was a draw. Because honestly, Ichigo fell first. So in actuality, Kenpachi technically won that fight. Because him and Zangetsu were working together, it spiked up his Ryatsu immensely. He was calling upon his Quincy powers, as well as a little bit of his true Zanpakuto, or at least some of Zanpakuto's energy. That doesn't happen here. Now, granted, he's still edging out Kenpachi. The problem with that is it's still going to end probably in a draw. Like, even though Kenpachi is going to get slashed up pretty badly, Ichigo is also going to take a serious one. I still think it's going to be that one to the chest he takes. And unfortunately, when you see how he got injured in that, he literally just sliced right open. They're like, oh, that was a bad wound he got. And so it's like, I'm sorry, my friends. Well, why are you apologizing? You stupid idiot. You won. Yeah, Jiro comes to get him, and then Yoruichi comes to get Ichigo. We cut over to Ichigo recovering. Lifting things like that is no problem for me once I go to my original form. Right, original form. I forgot. Wait, what? Oh, that's right. You've never really actually seen my true form. Given the fact you've come this far, there's no reason I. Behold, this is what I truly look like. Everyone's. By the way, Yoruichi, like, gaslighting much? Everyone assumes I'm a man. Cats don't talk, Ichigo. Use your head. I'm sorry. You have dog people in the Soul Society. You have talking skull-faced monsters that eat people's souls. You have people with magical swords, and you. I'm sorry, Yoruichi. F you for that. Like, use your head. How the hell is he supposed to know cats don't talk when Soul Reapers, Death Gods, and Hollows exist? Like, condescending much? Oh, God. Anyway, though, the Hollow Mask comes out. And to add at least a little nuance to, like, say, the Saiyan heritage stuff, his Hollow Mask, I think, while looking similar, also has a bit more, like, I'll say, like, fangs, and maybe even, like, almost like some ears coming off. So his Hollow Mask could represent, like, an ape. To some degree, as opposed to just a skull, or at least an ape skull. We actually don't think we haven't really seen that for visor masks anyway. I know we've seen that for some hollow masks, but something akin to what Love's mask looks like, kind of like the Oni looking mask, but more ape-like, if you can make it like that. So, but again, leaning more towards Ichigo's mask design. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at there. Point being, though, Ichigo again tries to fly off to rescue everyone, and unfortunately, he's still pretty worn out. So going Super Saiyan isn't really an option at this point. Yoruichi basically tells him, "Yeah, no, you're not going anywhere. Just come back here." And she knocks his ass out, saying, "I was the only one who said have a chance of walking out of there alive." And she just wails on him. Once again, he's getting a Zenkai from recovering. And they begin their training. He stabs Zangetsu into the dummy, and Zangetsu emerges. However, Zangetsu says, "I am not going to teach you Bankai, Ichigo." I think what would happen here is like, what are you talking about? This is the whole point of this training's for. Is like, no, that's what you want to do. However, you still don't understand you tell me, you still don't understand, do you, Ichigo? Let me. Then answer one question for me, and I will train you in Bankai. All right, fine. What is it? What am I to you? You heard the question, Ichigo. What am I to you? And Ichigo starts saying, "Well, you're my Zanpakuto. You're my sword. And what else? Is that all I am to you? A weapon to be used? You asked me for my name, and I granted it to you. I hoped that you would learn to grow with me, but you have simply just ignored me ever since achieving my name. So tell me, how are you any better than Kenpachi Zaraki, a man who doesn't even ask his Zanpakuto's name, who lives in disharmony with it?" And Ichigo is like, he just got called out, like, And so then, sure, then if you want to learn Bankai, then suddenly he summons like all the swords. He just takes Zangetsu away from Ichigo's hands. Then you have to earn it. And so, are you ready? He's like, "Yeah, I'll take over for here." And Yoruichi's like, "What is this? Another being inside of him?" I say, "Hi there, partner." And they have their match here in the real world. The problem for Ichigo is this is going to eat up a lot more time. That being said, because honestly, we have no idea what the time length of what was happening in his inner world was versus what the real world was. Because a lot of time can pass in the real world, in his inner world versus in the real world. Time kind of stands still sometimes. But in the real world, you don't get that. Still, he ultimately learns to beat Zangetsu very well. I will train you in Bankai, Ichigo. But know this, you only have 3 days. And so their training begins. Cut to where Ichigo shows up to rescue Rukia. He shows up there. Yes, of course he got Bankai. That'd be silly if he didn't. Well, not silly, but it wouldn't be fun if he didn't. And so Ichigo comes in, beats the 3 lieutenants. Renji tosses tosses Rukia like a dodgeball. Actually, how would I say he tossed her? He tossed her like he shot put her. Yeah, he kind of shot put her a little bit. And so then Byakuya comes in. They clash. He reveals Getsuga Tensho. So far, so good, right? Well, now we get the big one. Since you want it so badly, here is my Bankai. Bankai, Zenbon Sakura Kageyoshi. And Ichigo is trying to fend it off. He even goes Super Saiyan. I see. So this is the power spike I felt so long ago. And Ichigo is now moving fast enough that he can actually keep out of range pretty easily. Because his Bankai alone compresses his spiritual energy down. And the Bankai, on average, is 5 to 10 times more powerful. We know Ichigo had only just attained it, so it's probably on the lower side. That being said, however, Ichigo also has the Super Saiyan multiplier is 50 times. So, and again, like I said, not all Bankais are created equally. That's, as to quote Pirates of the Caribbean, it's more of guidelines than actual rules. Because it's very clear. There are Zanpakuto whose Bankai seem to exceed 5 to 10 times multiplier pretty hard. Well, again, Yamamoto's, Hitsugayas, Kenpachis, those 3 fall into the category of Zanpakuto that clearly are more than the 5 to 10 times multipliers, in my opinion. You can debate that in the comments all you want. But Ichigo, as a Super Saiyan, is able to kind of outpace and even outmatch. He even does a supercharged Getsuga. But he also knows he can't keep Super Saiyan up forever. He wasn't training with Super Saiyan. He still hasn't really been training with Super Saiyan. He's just getting used to how it feels to be Super Saiyan. And so he's blasting energy blast. He's he is overwhelming Zenbon Sakura to a certain extent. But we know for a fact that Byakuya was not going all out, or he learned new techniques like Gokei when he during the time between the Soul Society and Hueco Mundo. And so when Ichigo comes into attack, he immediately just surrounds stuff in the ball, shreds Ichigo a little bit, and unfortunately Ichigo is unable to get out of the way in time before getting blasted by the blades. Fortunately, Ichigo, being Super Saiyan, off-puts it a little bit with his Ryatsu, but he's still in pain. He's still his Super Saiyan dies down temporarily, shows off Bankai, and then he just goes in again, hard and fast. Byakuya now is actually a bit more tired out here. So Byakuya is Byakuya, who at least at the beginning of the fight was on the losing side of it, is now actually legitimately on the losing side here to a certain degree. But he quickly goes into Senkai, summons the swords. They're clashing, and swords are coming his way. He once again goes into Super Saiyan, kind of just doing it briefly, kind of like Kaioken, only doing it in spurts. It's like, ugh. And he's pushing Byakuya hard. Like honestly, he's pushing Byakuya to the brink, because when you factor in Super Saiyan on top of Bankai, now you're talking about literal 500 times multiplier, or at minimum a 250 times multiplier. That's not numbers that most of the captains can compete with, save for probably Aizen and Yamamoto at this time. And then if you're talking later in the series, Ichibei, any of the Royal Guard, really. Because when you're shaking dimensions, that's the level of power that can contend with something like that. But then, Aizen, Ichibei, Thousand Year Blood, War Kenpachi, Yamamoto, Yowa. There are characters down the road that can easily compete with this level of power. But right now, except for Yamamoto, there isn't really anyone who can compete with this level of power. At least, and not without having a special ability around it. Unfortunately, Ichigo also is injured. His body's getting worn down from using Super Saiyan again for too long. And he's the first time really using Bankai. So, like before, he's tiring out. Then Hollow comes in. It starts going ham on Byakuya, who is now almost loses an arm. Like, his arm is dead. Only for Ichigo to say, stop putting in! And say, no, don't you understand? We can win! We can win if you just let him into me! I get lost! And just tears it off. As I see. Why? Why would you protect Rukia? I was like, if you beat me, I will give you the answer. And so Senkei, was it Senkei? Zembo Zakura Kageyoshi, and just gets a Tensho. They, go in for their clash. They clash, and it ends with Ichigo winning. Although, to be fair, I think once again, Byakuya probably is like, maybe his arm actually gets taken off here. Just, I see. And he explains that, we are to enforce laws. If we don't enforce the laws, who will? I would still fight the law! I see, it was never me. I was never his opponent. You've won this fight. And he picks up his arm and he goes like squad 4 to like have it just at least put on so he can have it back. Because apparently you can do that. You can regrow limbs in the Soul Society. You can regrow teeth. You can do a lot in the Soul Society. The last bit of the Soul Society arc that we'll cover is obviously Aizen's betrayal. Aizen comes in. Ichigo blocked the attack. Granted, Ichigo's pretty tired out at this point. He's, again, still stronger in this one. And when he comes in, he knows he can only do Super Saiyan at this point now for a few seconds. Because, again, it's just too hard on his body at the moment. Think of it like this. Kind of like what we saw in the Tournament of Power where Goku was just flickering in and out of Super Saiyan. He could barely do it. Here it's kind of a little bit the same thing. Like, he can only maintain it. He's just so tired and beat up. They can only do it for a little bit. So when Renji does the attack, he comes in, he goes in for the attack, goes Super Saiyan only for a moment. And I do think this is something where Aizen doesn't block it with his finger. It's like, boom, which I think kind of gives you an idea of how much stronger Aizen really was than Ichigo. Because if Bankai, let's just say it's 5 times for Ichigo right now, and it's about Reiatsu was already at the level of a captain, that would put him somewhere in the 5 times range. That would mean that Aizen would have to be at minimum, and I mean minimum, at that moment, he wasn't even using his full power. We know that for a fact. He'd probably have to be a minimum for him to just block it with his finger. For it not to even register. 3 to 4 times stronger than that Ichigo. That's why the Super Saiyan form is not as big an amp as you might. It's still a huge amp. Don't get me wrong. It still led to a good to messing Kenpachi up and an actual victory against Byakuya. But when you're dealing with individuals on that level of power, even adding Super Saiyan on there, minimum, Aizen's not going to stop with his finger. He's going to legit stop with either Keto or he's going to stop with his blade. Because he's been seeing this phenomenon with Ichigo, sensing it, like, I see, and just, boom, just stops it with his blade, just clashes, maybe adding Keto with it. Or he stops him with a Byakuya, Bakudo 60, was it Bakudo 65 or 66, or Ryu 61? Ryu Jukoro. I believe it's that 5-star. Ichigo, you stop. I'm afraid you're, and Ichigo quickly goes out of the Super Saiyan mode. I'm afraid, my word, that power of yours certainly is frightening, boy. You are something special. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like you can hold it very long. And just again, guts Ichigo. Only your spinal cord is the only thing keeping you in one piece. So yeah. And so the day ends. Kenpachi's like, hey, Ichigo, want to fight? It's like, no. Because at this point, Kenpachi also would be stronger too, because technically speaking, Kenpachi doesn't get Zenkais, but he's releasing the limiters on his head, which I guess is his own personal Zenkai, like, release every time he's, like, getting stronger. So, yeah. Ichigo, the day is saved. Ichigo wins, more or less. Still gets kind of cleaved up by Aizen. But then we're moving into the Ironcart. He punches Kisuke for, lying to him and all that. And so the day is saved. But dark things lurk on the horizon. Anyway, I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'll see you folks next time. Later.